Camera's rolling.
Camera's rolling.
All right, and we are good.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Marketing Mondays with Meg, the place business owners come to get honest, practical, and smart marketing advice. Today, we have a great show for you. My producer, Matt Heyer from Berg Brothers Media, and I are talking with Chris Klein. He is the owner of Pittsburgh Beautiful, which is a multimedia company that shares the beauty and excitement of Pittsburgh with other Pittsburghers and with folks around the world. So if you're from Pittsburgh, you've probably heard of this because Pittsburgh Beautiful has a website, a podcast, a blog, an app, a couple social media sites, including a Facebook page with over 200,000 followers, an Instagram page with almost 60,000 followers. So I think Chris can share a lot of really great marketing tips and strategies with our listeners. So welcome, Chris, to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm real happy to be here.
I'm glad you could come and share some of your wisdom with us. So tell us about Pittsburgh Beautiful. What is it and how did you create this?
Pittsburgh Beautiful basically started as kind of a creative project on my own. I've lived here since 1993, and when I moved here, if you were here in the early 90s, it was kind of, I think the other day I described it as we were being served the dessert of a very nasty dish, which was the decline of the steel industry and manufacturing. And for so many years, the powers that be in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County and Western PA talked about how they were going to change this area. And there were so many ideas being thrown around and nothing ever seemed to happen. Mm-hmm. And I had decided to stay here. I mean, I had opportunities after school. I lived in Philadelphia before I moved here. And I decided to stay here. And in, the mid 2000s, I started to finally notice that change. And that's when Facebook started to get popular. And I was working in the banking industry, and I've always been a graphic artist, and that's really what I went to school for.
Okay.
And so I was playing around with Facebook, and I started taking pictures around the city of things I saw changing, and started a Facebook page. And it was 10 years ago. And I think our 10th anniversary is actually September. I don't remember the exact date. It's in September of this year.
Okay. And you said off air here that you have seen a lot of growth in the last 3 years with Pittsburgh Beautiful. What have you done? What's changed?
Well, it's funny because for the first 5 or 6 years of the Facebook page Pittsburgh Beautiful, I didn't have a website. It was just a hobby, and it was me throwing up pictures. And I started to notice that people were responding to it, which was never my intent. I was just it was an outlet for me, maybe almost an outlet for my frustration about why Pittsburgh was not becoming what it could be, which I thought was beautiful. And in 2016, my wife and I, between us, have 7 children, and I was out taking 4 of the kids. It's funny because I say 4 of the kids as if that's just a couple kids. Right. Yeah. But I was taking 4 of the kids to a movie and a cousin of theirs. And it was real quick. Right before the movie, I did one of those dad things. And I said, hey, everybody, give me a thumbs up, and snapped a picture. And that was it. We watched the movie, went home. And a couple days later, I was going through my pictures on my phone. And I saw the picture, and I was, having happy thoughts about it. And I noticed that all my kids were wearing a shirt that had something Pittsburgh on it, either a Pirates shirt or a Steelers shirt. One of my kids had a Steelers hat on, and they all had their thumbs up. And I thought, you know what, I'll throw that on Pittsburgh Beautiful. That looks pretty cool. So I threw that up there, and it didn't go viral in the sense that we all feel, viral is going to get 1 million views.
Yeah, right.
But I noticed that it got a ton of action. Okay. And back then, Facebook didn't have the analytics for you that they have today.
Yeah, right.
But it probably within 2 days, it got 1,500 responses. And I thought,
really
I'm on to
good.
something.
Especially then, right?
Right. And from that point on, I started asking people. I used that photograph. That was the first ad that I ran for Pittsburgh Beautiful. Okay. And I used that photograph as the ad. And I said, put up what you think is beautiful about Pittsburgh. And then, here we sit today. Literally, I think we had maybe 2,000 followers then. That was 3 years ago. And now we have over 200,000. Yeah.
So how did you get all the growth? I mean, What are you doing to make such huge strides in such a short time?
It's, I think one of the common misconceptions that people have about social media is that it's free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there really is nothing that is free.
Oh, that's
You know,
absolutely right.
When I talk to my wife about the marketing that I do for her and the branding that I do for her, she likes to tell people that her marketing and her branding is free because I do it. And it's really not, because I invest time.
Absolutely.
And energy, and sometimes money in it. Yeah. So I think the biggest mistake people have with social media, there's two mistakes. One, it's free from the standpoint of I can market for free and everybody's going to get my message.
Right.
And two, everything I put up is going to be seen by everybody that I want to see it.
Right.
So what I did is I used Facebook's platform. I picked audiences that were relevant, Pittsburgh audiences. Mm-hmm. I had people, I asked them to share what they thought was beautiful. And that was the hook for me is, when somebody has a business or a website or something and they're trying to sell you something, they're pushing this in your face. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I fall victim to it all the time. We all do. Yeah. I was at a conference where I was talking about social media once, and I said, I can't tell you how many things I have sitting around my house that I just whimsically purchased on Instagram. Because I'm dumber than the rest of you. I'm the one that's always on there, and I fall victim to it. But really, that's a once and done. I buy that tiny little camera because it's a cool gadget, and then I move on and I never go back.
Right.
If you want to keep people engaged, you have to make them feel like they have ownership in it. Mm-hmm. And when you say to people, you tell us what you think is beautiful, mm-hmm. and then you turn around and share it, and you have a platform like this that has this many followers, mm-hmm. they feel important. They feel like they're part of the process.
So what do? They submit. I mean, they can't go on there and put it on themselves, right? They submit it to you and you put it up?
They can go on there and put it on for themselves.
They can.
They go on and they post. Facebook allows you to have a timeline that you can have visitors post to on a regular basis. Now, it's not your main news feed.
Right, okay.
But you can have that community in there where people can post, and then you can put limits on it, you can put requirements on it.
Okay.
Or you can get rid of it altogether and just not have it.
Okay.
I allow people to put their own pictures on the timeline.
Okay.
Now, anybody can see it, but
I see.
He's pulling the
really cool.
Okay, so this is the group actually. If you want to go back to the actual page, the group is something new. If you go back to the page, when you go to write a post yourself, if you write something in there, it goes into where you see on the left-hand side here, posts. Okay, so what will happen is there on the right now is visitor post.
Okay.
There you go. Now you can literally scroll back through that for 10 years of people posting.
Stuff.
Yeah, which is great thing about Facebook is everything's archived. It's all there.
Yeah,
if you want to take the time, and I'll never admit that I have taken the time to do that, but if I can tell you for a fact that it's all there.
Pictures there.
Yeah, so when people share to this, the followers of the page, they have the ability to see that, but when I turn around and share it on my news feed, mm-hmm. that's giving them the sense that they have some ownership. And after all, I don't own Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right.
Nobody owns Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I really think that what's really magical about Pittsburgh in particular is the people mm-hmm. of the region. I mean, my extended family's from here, so I all the time when I'm asked about Pittsburgh Beautiful, I tell people I grew up in central Pennsylvania and I knew Pittsburgh, but I knew Pittsburgh as the place you came to die because all of my extended family were very old, and every time one of them passed away, we're going to Pittsburgh for a funeral. Yeah, they're all buried out in Jefferson Memorial in White Oak. No, not White Oak. Whitehall. I don't know.
Whitehall. That's probably yeah.
I don't remember. I just know how to get there. My dad and I have been there so many times. So I think that when in this in particular, if you go in here and you get involved in it at all, what you'll see is it's not just recent pictures that people are active in. You can go back and I get the notifications, you can go back for months and even years. There are still conversations going on around certain pictures.
Wow.
So they feel like
really
they have a part in this community.
Yeah, for sure. So they're vested in it.
They're
They
vested
wanna
in it.
see it continue and be successful, obviously.
Yeah, and that's really I think that's the key in anything social media is that, the active term in social media is media. And you have the old media
Yep.
and you have the new media. And they both cost money if you want to hit the right audience.
Yeah, and you raise a good point because a lot of business owners don't realize that Facebook is now a pay to play. And I have people tell me all the time, well, I'm not getting any engagement on Facebook. But then they'll also say, well, I don't spend any money on it.
Right.
And you're not going to get engagement because only about 3% of your followers are actually going to find you if you're not putting money behind those posts.
Right. That's right.
And people don't realize that.
Until you reach a certain critical mass.
Okay.
So, for example, you can't see on here because this is a visitor's viewpoint of it. But if you try to scroll back here, now go a little slower so I can keep up with you. Yeah, keep going. You can go a little faster. Okay, now go back. See this Roberto Clemente?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Is that the museum?
No, this is on the north side. That's a bar on the north side going on 376. That's been there for a long time. Well, somebody just sent me this picture about 24 hours ago. They actually submitted it on our app.
Okay.
And I put it up. Less than 24 hours ago, you can see the number of likes, comments, and shares. This photograph has reached, if I were to go into my page where you can see the statistics, in 24 hours, it's reached completely organically. I'm not spending any money, 70,000 people.
Really?
Right.
It's because Roberto.
That's one of the things, right? That's a hot button. People love Roberto Clemente. I mean, he died almost 40 years ago.
Okay.
But young and old, they love Roberto Clemente. And this person took that picture. They shared it with me on the app. I shared it with the rest of Pittsburgh Beautiful, and there you have it.
And
that's free marketing right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I wish I was selling Roberto Clemente t-shirts.
No kidding. Well, and that's something else that's so interesting is that you're not just posting, but you're getting a lot of engagement. So people are sharing those posts, they're commenting on them. And for, as we talk to these business owners, that's something that you should be striving for, right? It's not just about putting up a post to post it, but it's meant to be social. The intention is that you are engaging with your audience, that you have the opportunity to talk to them. They can share it with other people. Where I see a lot of business owners just posting for the sake of posting,
Right.
and don't realize that there really is more to it than that.
Right. No, well, it's having a budget and being consistent.
Being consistent too is a big, huge piece of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a school of thought that says you should post at least 10 times a day on social media. Well, I mean, if you're selling widgets, I don't know how many times you can post a picture of the same widget 10 times.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mystery that a lot of business owners have yet to solve with social media, is that it seems that the products that do the best are those gadgety type impulse buys. And so how does a business that is local continue to drive more and new faces in the door through social media? And that's a difficult thing to do because, you don't, if you're a plumber, what do you do? You've got to figure out how you're going to make your content interesting and keep yourself top of mind with people.
For sure. And I think that part of that is testing, right? So with Facebook or Instagram or any social media platform, LinkedIn, you really have to test and see what works for you because every business is different. And there is no across the board, you should do this. The practices can really vary from industry and product and service. It's just different. And so a rule of thumb, I hear that too, 10 times a day. But for a lot of businesses, that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And for a lot of businesses, it's not even practical.
Right.
It's just, that's a real time suck, So depending on, how you manage your content, you probably have a team of folks. Tell us, how do you manage your content? You've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to believe, but it's just me.
Oh my goodness. How do you do that?
I have 2 part-time writers.
Okay.
So I got one guy that writes about music in Pittsburgh, and he's my age. He's in his late 40s, and he's just basically in the music scene, and that's all he does.
Okay.
But because he's out late at night all the time, and he works at 2 different. He works at a cigar bar and a bar. And he's out late at night. I can't depend on him for an article on a regular basis, which doesn't bother me. I mean,
yeah, right.
So, and then I have another writer, Kate, who is she's from Upper St. Clair, but she currently lives in D.C. with her husband. But they're back here in Pittsburgh all the time, so she'll do some listicles and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she's a little more consistent, but everything else you see, it's 100% me.
Wow. So how do you, as the business owner, manage that content? How many hours a day do you spend doing that?
You know what? I've never sat down and thought about the amount of time I put into it, because if it's something you love, you don't think about
passion,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask my wife, I'm doing it 24/7. Yeah. And I guess that's probably true. But there are times when I walk away from it. Okay. And you also have to take advantage of the tools you have. So, with social media, you have scheduling tools.
Right.
So if you have an hour or 2 where you can sit down in front of your laptop or your iPad, and you've got a plan for what it is that the message you want to get out there, then you can take an hour or 2 and you can schedule things out and you can free up some time.
Sure.
But I'm also lucky in the sense that a lot of my content, and this is where a lot of other people, especially in the Pittsburgh area, a lot of these other social media outlets, that I guess they look at me as competition, and I don't know why, because we're all in this together. Yeah. But they get angry sometimes because they say that I'm poaching content, and because I'm not creating content, and that couldn't be further from the truth. None of the content, when somebody gives me a picture and says that's what I think is beautiful of Pittsburgh, mm-hmm. What I do is I share that as that's their content. Okay. It's their photo. So they get credit.
Yeah.
They're giving it to me and saying, could you let the world see this?
Yes, yes.
So I think what it is I think I've looked at it as I've almost in a way discovered the holy grail of content.
Yeah, because you're not having to create all of it.
Right. Now,
sharing it.
I create a very large portion of content. I do a lot of writing. I create the pages. I do videos. I'm creating content all the time. Mm-hmm. But I don't lack for any content. If I get burnout, I have fans and followers that provide content that they want to see.
Yeah.
They're providing what they want to see. So if you can figure out how that plumber is going to be able to get his people to provide, mm-hmm. So there's a hook there somewhere. I'm using a plumber right now because my mother's house has water in it from the 6 inches of rain 3 days ago.
No.
So yeah. So that's top of mind right now is plumbers. Yeah.
Right. So you started with your Facebook page, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's grown into a whole big platform where you offer multiple other things. So you have an app, you have a website, you have a podcast. How did that all come to be?
It evolved over time. I mean, when I started the Facebook page, I don't know if Instagram was even around. Mm-hmm. It might have been in its infancy.
Yeah, probably.
And Twitter was around, but we don't have a big Twitter following. I haven't really concentrated on it because mm-hmm. I feel like Twitter is something where you kind of want to get news out. That's a one headline kind of thing, and then everybody flocks to it. So we have a Twitter handle. There are people that follow it, and everything that gets posted gets put on there, but don't concentrate on it. So it was an evolution over time. So Instagram became popular. This is obviously a visual type of page. Mm-hmm. So let's move over and let's bring Instagram into it. And that grew very quickly.
You can see why. It makes sense.
Yeah. And then moving on to, it made sense. I always wanted to have a website for it. So it was the Facebook page, and then the website and Instagram came at about the same time.
Okay.
Then we moved over into when Facebook started offering live video. I started doing live video. One of the craziest things is I actually brought my camera comes with me everywhere I go. So in my car, I have it mounted, and I get people that literally wait for me to drive around Pittsburgh and just talk while I'm driving around Pittsburgh. So when I leave here, I'll probably turn it on and go live. And next thing you know, I'll have 150 or 200 people watching me, commenting. And you'll never get me to publicly admit this, but I might actually watch the screen while I'm driving and comment back while telling them there's a delay because I have to watch the road. But when I get to a stoplight, but I get people that watch, I call them live drives and they love them.
Okay.
That part kind of drives my wife crazy too, because
she's worried about you.
Well, she'll get a notification, be like, Chris is driving in the car with a camera on again, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure she loves that. And then you tell your kids not to do that.
I don't do the live drives when they're in the car.
Yeah,
I have to set a good example.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it evolved into all of these different mediums, and most recently, I thought about doing an app in the past. But I held off on that because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to use the app for. But about 6 months ago, a friend of mine said, now's probably the time if you think about it. And so we developed the app, and it's taken off. I mean, we've had it for about a month, and we've got 1,300 downloads of the app. And I'm now starting to get probably on a slow day, I'll get 5 pictures. On a busy day, I'll get 25 or 30 pictures submitted to me via the app that I throw up because they want me to share it on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you read about it, I mean, the app has everything in it. It's got a gallery. It's got, we put up events you can buy tickets to. I mean, you run the gamut. But to me, that's another way for people to engage. And I call it taking Pittsburgh with you in your pocket. So you get the Pittsburgh Beautiful app. Mm-hmm. If you're on the road somewhere, you can snap a picture right from the app, send it to me.
Yeah.
The one thing I have yet to do is automate it so it goes right to Facebook. I literally have to curate every single one of those photos.
Oh.
So yeah. So it's a double-edged sword. Like I would love for it to get popular and have 50,000 downloads, but then I'll be curating photos
all day long,
every second of every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have you found a way to monetize this at all, to where like if that did occur, then you could maybe just hire somebody to curate?
Yeah, the right now what Facebook has done is they give you the opportunity when your page hits a certain level, and not just a certain level though, a certain engagement. So there are pages that are bigger in the amount of followers, but they are not being given the opportunity to monetize because they have absolutely no engagement.
Right. Okay.
And so that what that means to Facebook is either the followers are fake, or there's really no other reason for it. Yeah, I mean, I know of one page that got lucky, and they'll remain nameless because I don't want to slam anybody, but they were brilliant in the beginning and got about 500,000 followers, but Facebook nixed what they were doing because they because of a technical glitch in how they named the page.
Oh,
and so they renamed the page, and when they renamed the page, all the followers are still there, but there's absolutely no engagement because the page name is not what it was.
Okay.
That's the best way I can explain it without saying this is the page and this is this is who it is. But I know the person; they're a great person. They were really lucky and then really unlucky is what happened. And that's the thing that I tell a lot of people when they come to me about advice for social media is like, okay, Pittsburgh Beautiful is my page, but it's really not. Facebook owns that.
Yeah.
If I make them mad, I will never have that again. So you have to be really, really careful. Yeah, and who knows what their rules really are. So it's common sense. Mm-hmm. It's common sense.
Yeah, that is a good point. Because they change the rules all the time.
Right.
So it's hard to keep up with it. And it's easy to make a mistake. Right.
So to answer your question directly, so with Facebook, the monetization comes with something called instant articles. So you can take your any blog post that you have, it has to be original content. And normally people will post links and it takes you to their blog. And what they're trying to do is generate traffic.
To their website.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to generate traffic to my website anymore. That's a side bonus. Yeah. I am generating traffic because the instant articles keep you native in Facebook, and that's what Facebook wants. Mm-hmm. They don't want you going off platform.
Right.
They want you on platform. So they give me the ability to monetize my blog posts. I post a blog post through my RSS feed. They pick it up. They keep it native on Facebook, and they serve ads, and they pay per impression. So that's one way to monetize, which I found to be very fruitful because I was getting a ton of traffic, for a long time that I wasn't able to monetize. The other way is they've just opened up subscriptions. So certain pages they offer, they're beta testing it now, and we're one of the beta testers. I think we're the only one in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Where you can offer a subscription, a monthly subscription to your followers, where you offer them behind the scenes content, special things, discounts, and stuff like that. So I've started to grow that, and mine is cheap. It's 99 cents a month. And what I say to people is, look, if you can't spend less than $12 a year to help keep Pittsburgh beautiful, then you should move, okay? I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
There's pages out there that are charging $5 a month and have 1 million subscribers, and I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Right. And now, there's one called Dr. Zog or something like that. He's great. He's like some kind of weird doctor, some bald guy. I don't know.
Is it local?
No. He's, I don't know. You know who I'm talking about?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've heard it. But I was also gonna say, have you ever thought about doing anything? I'm just curious. You ever thought about doing something like some sort of commission-based like store for prints for people that take these pictures, where maybe like they can sell prints through you and you get a commission for it being on your website or anything like that?
Yeah,
Great idea.
when we first started, I have a lot of the professional photographers in the city that try to sell their pictures on my page, and there's a couple rules, and I've had to teach them all the rules one at a time. And one of them is, don't put up a link and say I'll sell you my prints, because I'll take it down.
Yeah.
Because I do see almost every post that's put on there. I miss a few, but that was an idea. But in talking to these photographers, print photography is very difficult to sell anymore.
Okay.
And I looked at it from a cost-benefit analysis. I didn't even have to do the numbers. I would focus so much time and energy and money on that and get such a small return that I wouldn't be delivering to the people that are following the page, what they really want.
So it seems like the best monetization is just to monetize with those blog posts. That's like
And the subscriptions.
And the subscriptions.
Exactly. And with the app, what I've done is I've introduced, for just along those lines, I can give people their own gallery. So for a small monthly fee, a photographer can have their own gallery on my app. And the link, each picture can have a link to the website where they want to post. And it's a flat fee, no percentage of sales. And I look at that as more of an engagement resource and just kind of covering the cost of the app and my time. I mean, I'm not going to get rich. I'm not going to get 1,000 galleries on there.
Well, it makes sense for them because that's marketing.
You got it.
That's
For sure.
Simple marketing. For them.
You got it. So, I mean, and I charge them $25 a month, and I think our first one's going up in the next couple days.
Okay.
So,
That's really reasonable.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
it's super
The
reasonable.
amount
Yeah.
of traction you get through the app and on the
Yeah, for
Facebook
sure.
page.
Exactly. So the goal of Pittsburgh Beautiful really is to kind of lift the region and give it a reason to continue to love itself. I mean, that's really what it is. From a monetization standpoint, I look at things as, it's almost like if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, somebody who has the ability to truly monetize this page in a big way, either I'm going to discover it or they're going to come to me. Cough, visit Pittsburgh. So, and that's what's interesting to me, is you do have all of these other types of pages that are kind of Pittsburgh centric, but for the life of me, I haven't been able to figure out what they're all focusing on, because it's their following is very, very small comparatively.
Yeah.
And what I have noticed is that they've started to try to post pictures, and that people are sending in.
So they've seen what's working for you.
And they're not getting the traction because, so it's one of those things where I think we're all going to have to team up together and figure out how we're going to do it. But
Now, are you doing any promoted posts? I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'll pay to have my post up there, will you do something like that?
yeah, I've done that. I mean, I've run campaigns where if you're a business and you want us to do a write-up and some photos and do the standard blog post and then push it out on the Facebook page, I've charged money for that and businesses will pay. It's not anything that's really consistent, because I find what happens is if you don't do it in the right way, people expect, when you're a fan of a certain type of, page or something, you expect what you're consuming to be consistent.
Absolutely. If you go off brand, then you'll lose people.
Right.
You'd have to do it in a way that makes sense with within the context of what else you're doing.
Right, right. So where I'm going with that in the future is, for example, with the podcast, I'm inviting people on for free. And I'm doing it from the standpoint of these are regular people, regular Pittsburghers. I actually have a woman from Singapore who loves Pittsburgh so much that she comes here a couple times a year. And I only met her because she downloaded the app and started sending us pictures. And they were great. And one of them won Picture of the Week with Post Industrial. So I reached out to her and she told me her story. So I'm going to have her on the podcast.
That's such a cool story.
Right. It's a great story. And the first episode was a travel agent from New York who follows Pittsburgh Beautiful, who saw me put up, hey, I'm looking for guests for my podcast, and said, hey, I'm a travel agent right outside of New York City. I send people to Pittsburgh for vacation. I lived there in the late 60s, early 70s. I wasn't born there. I was born in Texas, moved to Pittsburgh, left Pittsburgh, moved to New York. I've been here for 45 years, but I send people to vacation from New York to Pittsburgh. And we had a nice, exactly. I said,
like, who would have thunk it, huh?
Absolutely. And he considers himself a Pittsburgher, and he lived here for 6 years.
Isn't that interesting?
Right. Was not born here.
Yeah.
And has lived 90% of his life outside of Pittsburgh and Western PA.
Feels like a Pittsburgher.
He's like, I'm a Pittsburgher all the way. So, I think there's so many interesting stories to tell, and there's so many interesting things to hear. And I think that because podcasting now is all the rage, I think that something like that is, it's just the more engagement you get, the more opportunities you have to monetize.
Well, and the podcast makes sense too, because now you're sort of getting into a different phase of Pittsburgh where you're getting into the people as opposed to the photos, because if you meet people from out of town, the one thing they always tell you is, I love the people. Pittsburghers are so nice. They're so kind to each other. You could ask them directions. I think the people side could be really interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought was really, really great about Pittsburgh when I first moved here was I moved here from Philly, and I was in the banking industry, in the mortgage industry, and I worked with all these people who had grown up in Pittsburgh. And a lot of my friends in college in Philly were from Pittsburgh, so that's basically how I ended up out here. But they would say, so where are you from? Because I didn't sound like I was from Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I sounded like I was from Philly at the time.
Okay.
And I said, well, I moved here from Philly. And they said, why? Like, why did you move here from Philly?
Yeah.
Well, I thought y'all hated Philly. Yeah, we do hate Philly, but apparently we hate our own hometown even more right now. Remember, it was the early 90s.
Yeah, right. It's
Everybody
a
was really
different
down
city
on it.
now.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Completely different.
Completely.
Yeah.
And but as I got to know more people here, and I lived in the city. When I first moved here, I lived in Shadyside, and then before we started the podcast, I was telling you I lived in Bloomfield, right up the street. I lived here for the first 11 or 12 years that I was in Pittsburgh. I lived right in the city, right in this area, and what I really started to notice was the sense of humor that people have here, and I'd kind of been exposed a little bit to it through my friends in college, but we were living in Philly and they were from Pittsburgh. So it was kind of like, look at those weird hillbillies from Pittsburgh. That's the way everybody in Philly looked at them.
Yeah,
and they have this interesting sense of humor, it's really deprecating. Well, then I moved out here and I realized that it's true. That's what Western Pennsylvania is. And the way we make fun of ourselves, and I can see him shaking his head over there. I mean, it's very unique.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's very unique. And that's one of the things that I really like to highlight on a lot of the things that I do, which is why we're doing the Yinzer alphabet, phrases that only Yinzers understand. Those are the posts that get the most traction. It's those and food posts and history posts.
Okay.
So that's really, as we move on into and we evolve into the podcast and into the app and into other areas, you have to give your followers, your fans, your clients, your customers, no matter what kind of business you're in, you have to give them more of what they want to consume from you.
Absolutely. You really have to listen to them, and they'll tell you what they want. And clearly they've told you what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, they want me to make fun of them. That's exactly right.
So what is in the future for you at this point, for Pittsburgh Beautiful? What's left to do?
That's a really good question. My goal with Pittsburgh Beautiful itself is to have 1 million followers around the world. And I think that's very achievable. I really, one of the things you wanted to ask me is, what did you envision for it? Did you think it would get this big? And my answer is actually yes, I did. I mean, I envisioned it being this big from day one. I can't say from day one, from the day I put up that picture of my kids.
Yeah.
And I got the reaction that I got. Mm-hmm. And then I started to kind of figure out what it was I needed to be doing with it.
Yeah.
I would tell my wife, this thing could be huge.
Yeah.
And it's really because of the love of Pittsburgh that people have. Mm-hmm. People that are expats that have moved away because of the job situations. There's this, I hope he doesn't listen to this because I'm going to call him an old guy, but there's this old guy that lives in Arizona that every time he comes into town, he takes pictures and video and he sends it to me. And he's originally from Pittsburgh. Okay. And he wants to be on the podcast. Okay. And he became a supporter. He paid to become a supporter. And he's putting out on it, he's in his 70s and he's throwing out on his Facebook page, support this page. It's a great Yinzer page, that kind of stuff.
So awesome.
But the beauty of the way people that have traveled through this city or have lived in this city or have somehow been touched by this city, not to mention the guy that was the travel agent. Mm-hmm. He's not, I don't want to insult him, so if he hears this, I'm sorry. But he's not really a Pittsburgher, if you think about it. I'm not really a Pittsburgher. I've been here 26 years, but, the true Pittsburgher is born and raised, and maybe they've moved away.
Yeah.
But the way this city touches people in so many different ways is really what this is about. And I think there is definitely 1 million people around the world that will follow this and be a part of it. And most importantly, participate with it.
Well, and it seems like a great way to connect with the city if you've left. And I didn't really think about that when I was preparing to talk to you. I was thinking it's sort of a project that people in Pittsburgh would love. But I didn't think about the fact that if you leave Pittsburgh, then you don't get to look at those bridges and hills and all the beautiful things. And this is a great way to stay connected to the city.
Yeah, and people do that. If you take a little bit of time and blow through some of the pictures and read the stuff, and it's really amazing to me how many people connect with it in that way and they comment in that way. Mm-hmm. I remember this growing up in the 1960s and the 1970s and the 1980s. Yeah. And it's really touched every generation. And with one of the things that I didn't mention is demographically, some of the reasons for going into some of the other platforms. Instagram is a younger demographic.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that was a big reason for getting into Instagram, besides the fact that it's also very visual.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different reasons, but I have people that watch videos. When I do my live drives, I will have people that are watching from Germany, because I say to people, tell me where you're watching from. One of the live drives, I had 47 of 50 states people were watching. Some of the live drives I'm watching from Germany, I'm watching from London. I hope the Penguins don't listen to this podcast, but during this first Stanley Cup of the last series of Stanley Cups that they won, the very first Stanley Cup game I was at with a buddy of mine, and we were sitting way up top. And I thought, I wonder what will happen if I'll just go live on Pittsburgh Beautiful during the game. So I broadcast the entire third period.
Did you really?
On Pittsburgh Beautiful, yeah. I had 5,000 people watching, and they were commenting. I'm watching from Taiwan. And that's when it clicked to me, like, okay, I probably can't do this. So I deleted it. And if I have one regret with it, is that I deleted that video. Because my buddy was watching it next to me going, I can't believe how many people are watching this.
That's amazing. Right. But you could probably get in some trouble with the Penguins. For that.
I really don't know. I went ahead and deleted it because I didn't think I was going to do the whole first period. Yeah. They generally don't care if it's a personal thing and you're doing that, like, that one thing and you put it up there because it was a great play and it happened to be live, whatever. Right. But if you're doing it for commercial purposes to make money,
that's a difference.
But I wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't offering. I was just at the game.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I saw it. But I got nervous and deleted it anyway. So I'm not violating any rules.
Yeah.
But watching from around the world was incredibly interesting to me. And they were actually telling me that your feed through your phone, even though they block they block the Wi-Fi pretty much down there because they don't want people doing it.
Yeah, right.
But once in a while, you'll get a window where you can get in there. They were telling me, commenting, your feed is 10 seconds ahead of the television.
Oh.
How is that possible?
Wow.
Yeah. I thought, you know.
They must delay it for some reason.
They do delay in case something wild happens or somebody like
They can cut it out.
cut it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, that's so interesting.
You know, that's something that the important takeaway from that is that there were people from around the world that were watching it, and I think I think that's going to lead us in so many other different directions, but it's actually led us into other cities. So we are doing it in other cities now.
Oh, are you?
And you had said you had a question about that for me.
So you could do Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or Cleveland Beautiful, or
Name a city, I'll tell you if it's
Philadelphia Beautiful or something like that.
It's already set up.
Okay.
We got about 8,500 followers there. I have a friend of mine who's from Philly, lives in Pittsburgh, but he was born and raised in Philly, one of my college buddies. He's running Philadelphia Beautiful. New York Beautiful is up and running, has about 11,000 followers.
Wow.
Chicago Beautiful has almost 15,000.
Okay.
Nashville, Louisville, Miami, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Seattle, Cleveland, Boston. Boston's a good one. I think people from Boston are very similar to people from Pittsburgh.
In what way?
Boston has always seen itself as an underdog city.
Oh, you think? That's interesting. Okay.
Now, the differences are that if you take the Patriots out of it and you take the Steelers out of it, okay, you look at the pie and everything in a lot of towns is sports oriented.
Yeah.
You know, the Red Sox, how long did it take them to win a World Series? Always the underdogs, okay? Even now that they've had a run of good luck in the last 10 years, still the underdog.
Yeah.
Boston is a city that's bigger than Pittsburgh, but it's kind of got that similar gritty blue collar feel to it.
Okay.
And it's pivotal in the history of this country.
Oh, for sure.
You know, with the difference being that people don't realize how pivotal Pittsburgh is. But what happens is you start to do this in other cities and you start to see the way people react to different pictures and how they talk. And because you can't hear the accent on the internet, you can really start to compare the way they feel about themselves. And the people in Boston take a lot of pride in everything Boston, just like Pittsburgh.
That's very true, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been so interesting talking to you. We've talked about so much that I think our listeners can implement into their own businesses. So at this point in the podcast, I typically pull out 3 things that we talked about that are takeaways for our listeners that they can take into their business this week and implement into it. And so, you could kind of help me with this. The one thing that I got that I think is probably very valuable is the consistency of using social media. So you really need to be consistent if you're going to commit to doing it, right? So you got to, it's a commitment.
Yes.
It's a huge commitment. It takes a lot of time, but it can be very fruitful.
Yes.
But the key is to be consistent.
I would say that's number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trumps anything. And that's anything you do. If you want to be successful at anything, you have to be consistent.
That's true. And I think, if you do, we've all seen this, right? Where we go to somebody's Facebook page and we see the last post was 2017 and you think, are they still in business or what's going on with them? And so it's concerning. So you just don't want to do that. You don't want to do it for a while and then abandon it. So if you're going to commit to it, and it doesn't have to be a commitment of 10 times a day. No. It can be, you can start out doing it once a week if that's what you need to do, but just whatever that level of commitment is that you make, that you stick with it.
Right. Right. And I think one of the things everybody always stresses over content. Well, if you think about it, you are your content.
Yeah.
That's,
Good advice.
you can search for all the content in the world, but if the business is you and you're the face of your business, you are the content.
Yes.
Then you have to be real.
Yeah.
You can't be fake.
For sure. And that, so that's the second takeaway I would say is that if you are the face of your business, which most of the people that are listening to us are, that take content from yourself. And so often we make such a production out of it, right? Like, what can I talk about? What am I going to say? And half of it's just being you and letting people know who you are so that they trust you and like you and want to do business with you.
Yeah. And do a video in your car when you're driving around. I'm on my way to this job. I thought I'd.
Podcast does not officially advocate yourself while you're driving. Take that for
Matt's our lawyer.
Right. Right. But I mean, I think you get the idea. So pull up to the job and park, be safe. I'm about ready to go into this job. I thought I'd let you all know. I was called to this place because of this, that, and everything else. I really hope it goes well. Yep. I'll tell you about it when I get back. And then ask the homeowner or whoever it is if you have their permission to maybe show the results and just be yourself.
Well, and it's so fascinating to me because when you talk about that, you think, who really wants to see that? And yet I watch all of that. For whatever reason, I find it really interesting what they're doing and where they're going. But when you talk about it in terms of yourself, you think nobody really wants to see me pull up to the sheets and go get a drink. Like, who cares? But I watch all of that stuff. And
I'm going to try that later. I'm going to pull up to a sheets and I'm telling you, there's one near my house.
I had to switch my mentality on social media and realize it's less of like a selling platform and more like you're in a big cocktail party type of deal where it's like, as you're going through it, those are real people. They're not just faceless, nameless, whoever's they're real people. And when they see you pulling up their sheets, it's like if your friend was telling you, oh yeah, today I went to work and then I met this really cool guy or whatever, you're going to sit and listen to them the same way that these people feel like they're your friend on social media.
Yes.
And you should treat them like your friend because they're real people.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that have really great friends that live across the planet.
Yes.
And it's like, how are you good friends with them? It's like, oh, we talk all the time on social media. We FaceTime. We use the technology to stay connected.
Yeah, the way we interact has changed so much over the years, and also the way that we respond to being sold to.
Absolutely.
The classic school of thought in sales is somebody has to see something 7 times before they buy. Now that's completely changed. I mean, it's evolving now into something that we're really not familiar with, and that's called algorithms.
Yes. Yes.
Which not even the engineers that create the algorithms completely know how they.
It's a big mystery
work.
to everyone involved.
Right.
But people want to be sold, like you said, differently than back in the day. They don't want to be pushed into something, and they want to. So I always tell my clients that it's almost like dating, right? You don't want to get a proposal right away. You don't want to ask somebody to marry you. You got to get to know them for a while. And that's what the whole content thing is about. It's getting to know who you are before you make a commitment to somebody. So I think that's great. And the last thing is, we talked about engagement, and I think that's really important, that a lot of business owners don't really understand the importance of social media from an engagement perspective, that it's not just you talking to your customers. You want to hear back from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's so important.
It is. And it's I think, and it's something that I've learned all of this on my own. I mean, this is stuff that you learn, and I could give you all the tips in the world. But you're going to figure it out on your own because every business is different on social media. I mean, my wife is a real estate agent. People don't use real estate agents every day.
Right.
But lots of people use real estate agents, and real estate agents get used every day.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
But, we buy Starbucks coffee every day. Right. So why do you see a Starbucks commercial or a McDonald's commercial? It's not because we're going to forget about it. Yeah. It's because McDonald's knows that while you're driving down 22 in Monroeville, you're going to go buy Arby's, Denny's, Wendy's, Chipotle, Starbucks, you name it. And what they're hoping is that right at that moment you get hungry, you hear their commercial and you pull into the McDonald's.
You see that billboard, you see the
before the right. Yep. But when it comes to a real estate agent, hey, you're going to care less about a real estate agent until
You need one, yeah.
a relative passes away and you have to sell an estate home. What am I going to do? Or you get that dream job and you need to relocate or whatever. So it's so different, and branding is so important when it comes to that. And engagement in your branding is even more important, because if nobody engages with you, they're not going to remember who you are when that time comes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Chris, before we let you go, how can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you after this?
Oh, it's really easy. Just you can email me at pittsburghbeautiful@gmail.com.
Okay.
It's that simple. Or you can message me on the Facebook page. You can DM me on Instagram. You can send me a message through the app.
Great. And you can pretty much be found anywhere at Pittsburgh Beautiful, right?
Yes.
All of your...
Everything
is Pittsburgh Beautiful.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, it's Pittsburgh Butte. But, if you search it, it'll pop up. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
You have shared some great insights, not only into this fabulous platform that you've built, but the information that can really help our business owners grow their business.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful you had me. I really had a good time.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. So if you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes that are coming up. And if you'd like more marketing tips and ideas on how to grow your business, you can visit my website, which is thebrandaccelerator.com. And we have a blog page with lots of marketing ideas, and you can sign up for a weekly e-blast that comes out every Monday with other marketing tips and ideas for you. So thank you, everyone, for being with us today on Marketing Mondays with Meg. And thank you to my producer again, Matt Heyer. Your contributions today were great, too. So thank you.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. And remember to... Here we go. So until next week, be sure to inspire other business owners, because together we can change the world. See you next Monday. Woo. You're going to need to edit that last piece there.